This is Course 2, Math, Chapter 7, Lesson 4, Circle Graphs, and I am Mrs. McCowan. Today I'd like to talk to you about our learning goal. Today's learning goal is, by the end of this lesson, every student will be able to construct and analyze circle graphs. Today's main idea, our vocabulary words, are circle graph, a graph that shows how a set of data is divided into parts, and sector, a region of a circle representing one part of the entire data set. Example 1. Use the circle graph to answer each question. So, looking at the circle graph, this is kinds of sea cucumbers, sea lilies, feather stars, sea urchins, sand dollars, brittle stars, basket. So we need to find out which group of endoderms includes the fewest number of species. So looking at my graph, I can determine that the group that has the fewest number of species, looking at my chart, would be the sea lilies and feather stars, because this is the smallest part of the pie. Next, approximately what percent of the species are brittle stars and basket stars? Well, if I look at this, it looks like when I break up my graph, and it looks like a peace sign. Well, if we remember from taking a whole, 1, and dividing it into 3 equal parts, that each part then becomes 1/3. So obviously this is about 1/3 or 33%. Okay, I'd like you to do the circle graph. Check it out. Number 1. Okay, let's take a look at the circle graph and find our answer. So the circle graph compares the sales of different types of cars during 1 year. Approximately what percent of cars were mid-size? Well, looking at my graph, I can definitely tell that the mid-size was here, which is about 50% or 1/2. Question number 2. Leon surveyed 30 people about pet ownership. The circle graph shows his results. Use the graph to answer each question. How many people owned dogs only? Dogs only? Well, looking at our graph, we can tell that dogs only is 20%, or if we change this to a fraction, that's 1/5 of people only own dogs. 1/5 of 30 is 6, so 6 people only own dogs. Question B. How many people own both cats and dogs? Well, cats and dogs is 10%. So if we change that to a decimal, 0.1 times 30 is 3. So only 3 people own cats and dogs. Okay, I'd like you to do check it out, number 2, on your own. Okay, we are on Check it out, number 2. 50 students were asked which instrument they could play. The circle graph shows the responses. How many played flute? Well, if we take 10% and take 10% of 50, that means 0.1 times 50. Our answer should be 5. Only 5 students play the flute. Example 3. A company reports its annual charitable contributions. Draw a circle graph to represent the data. So here we have education is $120,000, so that's about 25%. So I write 25%. Environment, $60,000, that's about 12.5%. Health, $120,000, that's about 25%. Disaster relief, that's $96,000, that's 20%. And arts and humanities, $84,000, that's 17.5%. Now I have to figure out the angle in which to make my graph. Well, we know that a circle is 360 degrees. So I'm going to take my percent and multiply by 360 degrees. That's how many angles are in a circle. 360-degree angle in a circle. So when I multiply 0.125 times 360, I get 45 degrees. When I multiply 0.25 times 360, I get 90 degrees. When I multiply 0.20 times 360, I get 72 degrees. When I multiply 0.175 times 360, I get 63 degrees. Now, I want to find the total amount of all the charitable contributions. So that was $480,000. That was my first step to figure out the percentage. I found the percent, and then I multiplied by 360. You can use a protractor to finish this off, which they did for us. So this would be the environment, and the environment would be 12.5%. And then this would be 17.5%, the arts and humanities. Okay, I'd like you to check it out, number 3 on your own. Okay, if we have our circle over here, we know that first we're going, before we even start drawing on our circle, is we're going to add up all these numbers. And when we add up all these numbers, we find that they are equal to 120. So I take 24 divided by 120, 18 divided by 120, and then we multiply these by 360. So each one of these you should have done to find your answer. And then 36 divided by 120 times 360. Now I'm dividing by 120 because that's my whole, and I'm multiplying by 360 to find the angle of my circle graph, pi. So we found that the first one, sprints was 20%. We found that the second one, hurdles was 15%. We found that the third one, relay, was 25%. And then the fourth one, jumping, was 10%. And then the last one, relay, was, throwing was 30%. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my easiest one to graph. So that would be my 25%. 25% is about 1/4 of my pie. So this would be 25%, which was relay. And then next, I'm going to graph my next largest to figure out what would be bigger than, a little bit larger than that would be my 30%. So this would be my 30%, which is throwing. And then a less than 25, that would be my 20%. So that's 20%, and that was sprints. And then I had hurdles was a little bit less than that. So hurdles was at 15%. And then my last one, 10%, was jumping. And that should look like my circle graph. Now I know it's a little messy and yours hopefully looks better than mine, but that is how you do a circle graph. Okay, if you need extra help, you can go back and watch this video again. You can ask Mrs. McCowan a question, or you can come in the morning for extra tutoring. Thank you for watching.